The call came in at 11, and I knew before Marco said a word that tonight would be different. His voice had that particular tightness, the one he reserved for situations that required delicacy, diplomacy, the kind of careful navigation that separated good bartenders from great ones. Elena, I need you to take the back section tonight, the private booths, VIP service. I did not ask questions. I never asked questions. I simply nodded, retied my apron, and made my way toward the velvet curtain that separated the main bar from the exclusive seating reserved for clients who paid triple for privacy. In 8 months of working at Rossetti's, I had served the back section exactly twice. Both times had been uneventful, wealthy men conducting business they did not want overheard, drinking expensive whiskey and leaving generous tips. I expected tonight to be the same. I was wrong. He was already there when I pushed through the curtain. One man, alone, sitting in the corner booth with a bottle of Macallan 25 and a glass that had been filled and emptied several times. I recognized him immediately, though I had never seen him in person. Everyone in this city knew Dante Marchetti's face. It appeared in newspapers, in whispered conversations, in the nightmares of men who had crossed him and lived to regret it. He was the head of the most powerful crime family on the eastern seaboard, a man whose name was spoken with the kind of reverence usually reserved for gods and monsters. Tonight he looked like neither. His suit jacket was draped over the seat beside him, his sleeves rolled to the elbows, his tie loosened. His hair, usually immaculate in the photographs I had seen, was dishevelled, like he had been running his hands through it. And his eyes, those dark, sharp eyes that supposedly missed nothing, were glazed with something I recognized. Grief. The kind that drove people to drink alone in the back rooms of bars, trying to drown memories that refused to die. Approached the table with practiced invisibility. "Can I get you anything else, sir?" He did not look up. His hand was wrapped around the glass, his knuckles white with pressure. "Another bottle." "Of course." I returned to the bar, retrieved a fresh bottle of Macallan, and brought it back to his table. He had not moved. The glass was empty again. "Should I pour, sir?" "Leave it." I set the bottle on the table and stepped back. Protocol dictated that I retreat, that I remain available but unseen, a ghost who materialized only when summoned. But something made me hesitate, something in the set of his shoulders, the rigid line of his spine, the way he stared at the empty glass like it held answers he could not find. "Is there anything else you need?" He looked up then. His eyes met mine and I felt the impact of that gaze like a physical thing. Heavy, searching, stripping away the careful blankness I wore like armor. For a long moment neither of us spoke, then something shifted in his expression. Some recognition I did not understand. "You're new," he said. 8 months, sir." 8 months. He poured himself another drink. His hand was steady, but I noticed the slight delay in his movements, the careful precision of someone who knew they were impaired and was compensating. "Before that?" "A diner in the South District." "Before that?" I hesitated. Most customers did not ask personal questions. Most customers did not see the staff at all. But this man was not most customers, and the question in his voice was not idle curiosity. "Before that, I was somewhere else," I said. "Somewhere I don't go back to." He studied me for another long moment. Then he nodded, once, and returned his attention to his drink. I understood the dismissal. I retreated to my station and watched him from the corner of my eye, the way I watched everyone, cataloguing details without conscious thought. 2 hours passed. The bottle emptied. He ordered a third and I brought it without comment, without the gentle suggestion that perhaps he had had enough. Men like Dante Marchetti did not respond well to suggestions. They did not respond well to anything that resembled challenge or judgment. I simply served, and watched, and waited. At 1:30 his phone rang. I saw him look at the screen, saw something pass across his face, pain, sharp and immediate, before he silenced the call and set the phone face down on the table. His hand trembled slightly. He poured another drink, and this time when he lifted the glass, I saw his eyes close. Saw his lips move, forming words I could not hear. A prayer, maybe. Or a name. His men arrived at 2. I had known they were there all along. 2 of them stationed near the main entrance, watching without appearing to watch. But now they approached the curtain, their expressions carefully neutral, their eyes assessing their boss's condition with the practiced evaluation of people who had done this before. Mr. Marchetti, the taller one with a scar across his eyebrow, spoke softly. "The car is ready. I'm not finished." "Sir, it's late. Perhaps—" I said I'm not finished. The men exchanged glances. I saw the calculation happening, the weighing of options. Their boss was drunk. More drunk than I had ever seen any powerful man allow himself to become in public. He was vulnerable, exposed, and they could not force him to leave without risking his anger, his pride, the unpredictable wrath of a grieving man who happened to command an empire. "We'll wait outside, sir," the scarred man said finally. They retreated. I continued watching. Another hour passed. The 3rd bottle was nearly empty when Marchetti tried to stand. He made it halfway up before his legs buckled. His hand shot out, caught the edge of the table, steadied himself. But I saw the effort it cost him. I saw the way he swayed, the momentary loss of focus in his eyes, the split second where the mask slipped and revealed something raw and broken underneath. He was going to fall. He was going to collapse in the back room of a bar, and his men would have to carry him out, and tomorrow the whispers would spread. Dante Marchetti, drunk and helpless. Dante Marchetti, unable to stand on his own 2 feet. In his world, that kind of weakness could be fatal. I moved without thinking. "Sir." I was beside him before I realized I had decided to approach, my hand extended but not touching, giving him the option without forcing the contact. "Let me help you to your car." He looked at me. Those dark eyes, even dulled by alcohol, still carried a weight that made most people look away. I did not look away. I had learned long ago that looking away was an invitation to be dismissed, to be forgotten, to be seen as weak. I was not weak. I was simply invisible, which was a different thing entirely. "My men," he started. "Your men will follow, but you don't want them to see you like this." I kept my voice low-pitched for his ears alone. "I'm no one. I don't matter. Tomorrow you won't remember my face, and I'll never speak of tonight to anyone. Let me help you to your car." A long silence. I could see him processing, even through the haze of alcohol, the calculation, the risk assessment, the weighing of pride against practicality. Then he nodded. Once. Short and sharp. I tucked myself under his arm, took his weight against my shoulder, and guided him toward the back exit. He was heavier than I expected, and I was not tall or strong, but I had carried weight before. I had carried my own body through situations that should have broken me. This was nothing in comparison. We made it to the alley. The night air was cold, sharp with the promise of autumn, and I felt him straighten slightly as it hit his face. His car, a black sedan that cost more than a year of my rent, was idling at the curb. The 2 men were already there, their expressions carefully blank as they watched their boss lean on a bartender half his size. "I'll drive him," I said. The words came out before I could stop them. "You can follow." The scarred man's eyes narrowed. "That's not—" "Let her." Marchetti's voice was rough, barely above a whisper. "She drives. You follow." They did not argue. Men like them did not argue with men like him. The scarred one simply nodded, opened the back door of the sedan, and stepped aside. I helped Marchetti into the back seat. He slumped against the leather, his eyes closing, his breathing evening out. For a moment I thought he had passed out, and I felt a flicker of panic. What had I gotten myself into? But then his hand moved, reached into his pocket, and pulled out a set of keys. "Take the expressway," he murmured. "North. I'll tell you when to exit." I caught the keys and slid into the driver's seat. The interior smelled like leather and something else, something expensive and subtle that I could not identify. The engine purred when I turned the key, a sound so different from the rattling buses I usually rode that it felt like another world. I pulled out of the alley. In the rearview mirror, I saw the other car fall in behind us, keeping a careful distance. And in the back seat, Dante Marchetti, the most dangerous man in the city, sat with his head tilted back and his eyes closed, trusting a bartender whose last name he did not know to drive him home. We had been on the road for 10 minutes when I noticed the car. It was not the one following us. That vehicle had maintained a steady distance, its headlights familiar in my rearview mirror. This one was different, a dark SUV that had pulled onto the expressway 2 exits back and was now matching our speed exactly. Staying in my blind spot, moving when I moved. I said nothing. I simply changed lanes, testing. The SUV changed lanes too. I slowed slightly, it slowed. I accelerated, it accelerated. We were being followed. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I thought about the men in the car behind us. Marchetti's men, armed and trained. I could flash my lights, signal them, let them handle this, but something stopped me. Something in the way the SUV moved, patient and predatory, suggested this was not a random tale. This was planned. This was professional. And if it was planned, if it was professional, then the men behind us might already know, might already be part of it. I made a decision. "Hold on," I said quietly. Marchetti's eyes opened. "What?" I took the next exit at 70 miles an hour, tires screaming, the sedan's back end sliding before I corrected. The SUV tried to follow, but I had caught them off guard. By the time they reacted, I was already 3 blocks ahead. Weaving through side streets I knew like the back of my hand because I had walked them 100 times, learning their rhythms, memorizing their shortcuts. 3 turns, 4. A narrow alley that barely fit the sedan. A parking garage I knew had multiple exits. By the time I emerged on the other side, the SUV was gone. The car with Marchetti's men was gone too, lost in the chaos of my evasion. I pulled into a shadow beneath an overpass and killed the engine. Silence. In the back seat, Marchetti had gone very still. I could feel his gaze on the back of my head, sharper now, the alcohol haze burned away by adrenaline. "How did you know?" His voice was low. Dangerous. "I noticed a car following us. It wasn't yours." "You noticed?" "I noticed things. It's a habit. And the route you took, the shortcuts. How did you know them?" I turned to face him. In the dim light under the overpass, his features were hard to read, but his eyes, those I could see clearly, they were fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "I live in this part of the city," I said. "I walk these streets every night. I know which alleys connect, which garages have exits, which buildings you can cut through." "You walk." "I can't afford a car." He was silent for a long moment, then, "You just saved my life." "I don't know that. It could have been nothing. A coincidence." "It wasn't." He leaned forward, closing the distance between us. "I've been in this business for 30 years. I know when I'm being hunted. That car was waiting for us. They knew my route, knew my habits. Someone told them where I would be tonight." The implications settled over me like a cold weight. Someone close to him. Someone who knew his schedule. Someone who had seen an opportunity in his grief, and his drinking, and his vulnerability. "What do you want me to do?" I asked. "Take me home, but not the usual way. Use your streets, your shortcuts." His eyes held mine. "Can you do that?" "Yes." "Then drive." I drove. It took an hour and a half to reach his estate, winding through neighborhoods I knew and some I did not, taking routes so convoluted that anyone following would have lost us a dozen times over. Marchetti gave me directions when we entered unfamiliar territory, short, precise, his voice steadier now. Though I knew the alcohol was still in his system. He was fighting it, forcing clarity through sheer will. The estate, when we finally reached it, was not what I expected. I had imagined something ostentatious. A mansion with columns and fountains, and all the obvious markers of wealth and power. But the house we pulled up to was surprisingly modest. Large, yes, but understated. Stone walls and tall windows and a garden that even in the darkness looked carefully tended. It was the kind of house that whispered money rather than shouted it. I pulled through the gates. They opened automatically, some sensor recognizing the car, and stopped in the circular driveway. Marchetti did not move immediately. He sat in the back seat, staring at the house, and I saw his jaw tighten. Today was her birthday, he said quietly. My daughter. She would have been 26. I did not ask what happened to her. The grief in his voice told me enough. Something terrible, something that could not be undone. I'm sorry, I said. He looked at me then. Really looked, like he was seeing me for the first time. You drove me home. You lost a tale that was almost certainly sent to kill me. You asked no questions, expected nothing. A pause. Why? I thought about the question. Why had I helped him? Why had I stepped out from behind my careful invisibility to assist a man whose business was violence, whose hands were stained with things I probably could not imagine? Because you looked like someone drowning, I said finally. And I've been drowning my whole life. I know what it looks like when there's no one to pull you out. Something shifted in his expression, something I could not name. What's your name? He asked. Eleanor. Eleanor. He repeated it like he was memorizing it. I owe you a debt, Eleanor. I don't forget debts. You don't owe me anything. I just drove you home. You did more than that. He opened the car door and I saw him steady himself, test his legs before committing to standing. Wait here. He walked toward the house. I watched him go, each step careful, deliberate, the walk of a man refusing to show weakness even when no one was watching. The door opened before he reached it, and I caught a glimpse of someone inside, a woman in a dark dress who took his arm and helped him over the threshold. The door closed behind them. I sat in the car, my hands still on the steering wheel, wondering what I was supposed to do now. Wait, he had said. But for what? And how would I get home? We were miles from any bus route, and I could not exactly walk to my apartment from here. The front door opened again. The woman in the dark dress emerged, walked down the steps, and approached the car. She was older than I had first thought, her face lined but elegant, her posture straight. She stopped beside my window and waited. I rolled down the window. Mr. Marchetti asks that you wait, she said. He's making a phone call. Then his driver will take you home. I can take a cab. There are no cabs in this area, and Mr. Marchetti was quite insistent. Her expression softened slightly. He also asked me to thank you for what you did tonight. I did not know how to respond to that. I simply nodded. She walked back to the house. I waited. 20 minutes passed, maybe 30. I watched the sky begin to lighten at the edges, the first hint of dawn creeping over the horizon. I was exhausted. The adrenaline had long since drained away, leaving nothing but a bone-deep weariness that made my eyelids heavy. A different car pulled up beside me. A man I did not recognize stepped out of the driver's seat and walked to my window. I'll take you home, he said. Mr. Marchetti's orders. I hesitated. Do I need to give you the address? He already provided it. Something cold settled in my stomach. He already knew where I lived. Of course he did. A man like Dante Marchetti would have people whose only job was to know things, to gather information, to ensure he was never surprised. By now, he probably knew my shoe size and my blood type. I got out of his car and into the one the driver had brought. The ride was silent. I watched the neighborhoods change through the window, the clean streets giving way to cracked pavement, the manicured lawns giving way to garbage-strewn lots, the elegant homes giving way to buildings that leaned like they were tired of standing. We pulled up in front of my building, and I saw the driver look at it. Just a glance, quick and professional. But I caught it. I saw what he saw. The condemned notice that had been posted and ignored, the boarded-up windows on the upper floors, the smell of mold and decay that seemed to seep through the car's closed windows. "This is it," I said, and my voice came out flat, defensive. "Mr. Marchetti asked me to make note of your address for future contact. You can tell him I live here. Everyone lives somewhere." I got out before he could respond. I walked into my building without looking back, climbed the 3 flights of stairs to the basement level. The building was old, built on a slope, which meant the basement had a separate entrance but still felt underground, and unlocked the door to my room. Room. The word was generous. It was a space barely big enough for a mattress and a hot plate and the small table where I ate my meals. The ceiling leaked in 3 places, the walls were stained with water damage, and something darker that I tried not to think about. The radiator had stopped working last winter and never been fixed. The window was nailed shut because it faced an alley where things happened that I did not want to see or hear. I stood in the doorway, seeing it through a stranger's eyes, seeing it the way that driver would describe it to Marchetti, the way Marchetti would picture it when he heard. It did not matter. I had survived worse. I had survived things that would break most people. This was just a room. 4. Walls and a ceiling that mostly kept the rain out. It was enough. It had to be enough. I lay down on my mattress and slept. The knock came at 9 the next morning. I was not expecting it. I was never expecting anything. I had no friends, no family, no one who knew where I lived except for my landlord, who communicated exclusively through angry notes slipped under the door. I reached for the knife under my mattress before moving to answer. "Who is it?" "Mr. Marchetti." I stood very still. My mind raced through possibilities. Had I done something wrong? Had my driving offended him? Was he here to ensure my silence, to make sure I never spoke of his vulnerability to anyone? "What do you want?" "To talk." "Open the door." I did not open the door. I pressed my back against the wall beside it, knife in hand, heart pounding. "I'm not going to hurt you." His voice was calm, patient. "If I wanted you dead, you'd already be dead. I came alone. I want to talk." I believed him. I did not know why, but I believed him. I set the knife down, unlocked the 3 locks I had installed myself, and opened the door. Dante Marchetti stood in my hallway. He was wearing different clothes than last night. A dark suit, immaculate, his hair combed back, his face clean-shaven. No trace of the drunk, grieving man who had slumped in my back seat. He looked exactly like the photographs in the newspapers. Powerful, controlled, untouchable. But his eyes, when they met mine, held something the photographs never captured. Warmth, maybe, or gratitude, or something else I could not name. "May I come in?" he asked. I stepped aside. He entered my apartment. I watched his face as he looked around, the mattress on the floor, the hot plate, the stained walls, the leaking ceiling. I watched him take in the reality of how I lived, and I waited for the judgment, the pity, the contempt. His expression did not change. Not a flicker, not a twitch. But I saw something happen in his eyes, something that went hard and cold and absolutely still. "How much is your rent?" he asked. "400 a month." "And how much do you make at the bar?" "Enough to cover it. Barely." He walked to the window, looked at the boards nailed over it, turned back to me. "Last night, you saved my life. The men following us were sent by someone inside my organization, someone I trusted. If you hadn't noticed them, if you hadn't known those streets, I would be dead right now. You don't know that for certain. I do." He crossed the room, stopping a few feet from where I stood, close enough that I could see the fine lines around his eyes, the grey at his temples, the weight of years and violence written into his features. "The car was intercepted this morning. The men inside were armed. They had photographs of my vehicle. They knew exactly when and where I would be. If we had taken the usual route," he paused, "you saved me. And then you asked for nothing. Expected nothing, simply went home to this. I gestured at the room, the stained walls, the leaking ceiling, the poverty laid bare. I don't need your pity, I said. I'm not offering pity. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a key. Simple silver. I'm offering this. An apartment in one of my buildings. Safe. Clean. No rent. Why? Because I pay my debts. And because... He stopped, drew a breath. Because I walked into this room and I cannot walk out of it and pretend I don't know how you live. I cannot go back to my house and my security and my resources and leave you here. You don't know me. I know enough. I know you survived something. I know you're hiding from something. I know you have the instincts of someone who has been hunted and the calm of someone who has learned to survive. His eyes held mine, and I know that last night, when you could have driven straight to my house and let whatever was going to happen, you chose to save me instead. That tells me everything I need to know. I stared at the key, in his hand. It sat there like something impossible, a door to a different life. There are always strings, I said. Always costs. No one gives something for nothing. Most people know, but I am not most people. He set the key on my table. Take it. Move into the apartment. Tell anyone who asks that you're under my protection. I ask nothing in return, except that you don't disappear. I want to know you're safe. That's all I want. Why does it matter if I'm safe? He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different. Lower. Rougher. Stripped of its careful control. Because I had a daughter. Juliana. She was 8 years old when men who wanted to hurt me took her. They kept her for 3 days. When I found her, he stopped. His jaw tightened. She survived. For another 18 years she survived. But she was never the same. The fear lived in her, ate at her. 3 years ago she walked into the ocean and didn't come back. I understood then. The drinking, the grief. The way he had sat alone in that back room, trying to drown something that refused to die. Every year on her birthday, I try to forget, he said. Every year, I fail. And every year, I am reminded that all my power, all my money, all my violence, none of it could save her. None of it could keep her safe. He looked at me, and in his eyes I saw something broken. Something that would never fully heal. I can't save Juliana. But when I see someone else who needs saving, someone strong enough to survive but trapped in circumstances that will eventually destroy them, I cannot turn away. I won't turn away. I don't need saving. No, you don't, he almost smiled. You saved yourself a long time ago. You're still saving yourself every day in ways that would break most people. But survival isn't the same as living. And you deserve to live, Elena, in a place where the ceiling doesn't leak, and the heat works, and you don't have to count coins for bread. I did not know what to say. I had spent my entire life learning that kindness was a trap, that generosity came with strings, that every gift was simply a debt in disguise. And now here was this man, this dangerous, powerful man offering me something I had never believed existed. Safety. I need to think about it, I said. He nodded. He did not seem surprised. The key will wait. The apartment will wait. Take whatever time you need. He moved toward the door, then paused. There's a phone number in your pocket. I had someone place it there last night in case you needed to reach me. Use it if you decide. Use it if you don't. Use it if you ever need anything at all. He left. I stood in my small, miserable room, looking at the key he had left on my table, and I felt something I had not felt in years. Hope. 3 hours later, I called the number. The apartment was beautiful. I do not know how else to describe it. It had walls that did not leak, windows that opened and closed, a bedroom with an actual bed, a kitchen with appliances that worked, a bathroom with hot water that stayed hot. It was on the fourth floor of a building with security and doormen and cameras in the hallways. When I walked through it for the first time, I stood in the middle of the living room and pressed my hands against my eyes to keep from crying. I did not cry. I had trained myself out of it years ago. But standing there, in that impossible apartment, with the key in my hand and the promise of safety ringing in my ears, I came close. Marchetti was not there. He had sent someone else, an older man with grey hair and a face that looked like it had never smiled, to help me move, though there was almost nothing to move. A bag of clothes, a box of books, a few photographs I had carried with me through every city, every name, every life. That was all. 30 years of existence, and it fit in a single trunk. "Mr. Marchetti asks that you call if you need anything," the man said when the trunk was deposited in my new bedroom. "He'll be checking in on you periodically, not to intrude, to ensure you're settling in." "Thank you," I said, "for everything." He nodded and left. I stood in my new apartment, in my new life, and I waited for something to go wrong. Nothing went wrong. The days turned into weeks. I continued working at the bar. I needed something to do, something that was mine, but everything else had changed. A car appeared at the end of every shift, driven by someone who worked for Marchetti, and it took me back to my apartment without question or comment. Food appeared in my refrigerator. The heat worked. The water stayed hot. I lived for the first time like a person instead of a survivor. Marchetti visited twice in those first weeks. Once at the bar, sitting in the back section where we had first met, watching me work without speaking. He ordered water, not whiskey, and he left a tip that was more than my weekly salary. The second time was at my apartment, unannounced, standing in my doorway with a book in his hand. "You mentioned you liked to read," he said. This was Juliana's favourite. I took the book. It was worn, well-loved, the spine cracked from years of handling. A collection of poetry by an author I did not recognise. "Thank you," I said. "Read it. Tell me what you think." He left before I could respond. I read the book that night. The poetry was beautiful, sad and hopeful in equal measure, full of images of loss and redemption and the small moments that make up a life. I understood, reading it, something about the daughter he had lost, something about the woman she had been before the fear consumed her. The next time he came to the bar, I told him, "She had a beautiful soul," I said. "I can feel it in the poems she loved." Something shifted in his expression, something that looked almost like pain, but sweeter, more bearable. "She did," he said. "She was the best part of me." We talked for 2 hours that night, not about business, not about the world he moved in, but about her, about Juliana, about the child she had been, the woman she had become, the future that had been stolen from her. He spoke with a rawness I had not expected from a man like him, and I listened without judgment, without pity, without trying to fix or minimize what he had lost. When he left, he touched my hand briefly. Just a brush of fingers. But I felt it long after he was gone. The trouble came 4 weeks after I moved into the apartment. I was closing the bar alone. Marco had left early, trusting me with the keys, when I noticed something wrong. A bottle out of place. A chair moved from where I had pushed it in. Small things. Things that would have meant nothing to anyone else. I felt the presence before I saw it, a man sitting in the shadows at the far end of the bar, not one of Marchetti's men, someone else. "Elena Volkov," he said. His voice was smooth, cultured, wrong. "The runaway, the hidden one, Mr. Marchetti's. New project." I did not move, did not show fear. "Who are you?" "My name is Carlo. I work for Marchetti." He stood, moved into the light. He was handsome in a sharp way, with cold eyes and a smile that did not reach them. "Or rather, I work for myself. Marchetti just hasn't figured that out yet." "What do you want?" "Information, mostly. You see, there are people who would pay very well to know about Mr. Marchetti's new arrangement, his soft spot, his vulnerability." His smile widened. "You?" I'm not his vulnerability. No. Then why does he visit you twice a week? Why does he send cars and food and books? Why does one of the most dangerous men in the city spend his time protecting a bartender who means nothing? I kept my voice steady. Whatever you think is happening, you're wrong. Am I? Carlo stepped closer. I've been watching you for weeks. I've seen the way he looks at you, the way his whole operation has shifted to accommodate your safety. Dante Marchetti doesn't do that. For women he doesn't care about. He doesn't do it for anyone. His eyes narrowed. Which makes you valuable. And valuable things can be sold. Who's buying? Your father, for one. He's been looking for you for a long time. He's offered quite a lot of money for information about your whereabouts. The words hit me like ice water. My father. Of course. He had never stopped looking. Men like him never stopped. Get out, I said. I'm not finished. Yes, you are. I reached behind the bar, to the place where Marco kept a shotgun for emergencies. My hand closed around the grip. You can leave now, and I won't tell Marchetti you were here. Or you can stay, and we'll see which of us he believes. Carlo studied me for a long moment. I could see him calculating. The risk, the reward, the variables. Whatever he saw in my face must have tipped the balance. You're smarter than you look, he said. But this isn't over. Your father's money is very persuasive. Someone will take his offer. Eventually. He walked out. I waited until I heard the front door close, until the sound of his footsteps faded, until I was sure I was alone. Then I picked up the phone and called Marchetti. Carlo approached me tonight. He mentioned my father. A long silence. Then, very quietly, stay where you are. I'm sending someone. 30 minutes later, 2 of his men arrived. They swept the bar, checked the exits, and escorted me to my apartment. One of them stayed outside my door all night. In the morning, Marchetti himself appeared. Tell me everything, he said. I told him. About Carlo. About my father. About the 4 years I had spent running. The cities I had moved through. The names I had worn and discarded. I told him about Victor, my brother, who had been my father's enforcer before I left. About the things my family did. The drugs, the guns, the women they trafficked across state lines. I told him everything, and I watched his face as I spoke, waiting for the judgment, the revision, the moment when he decided I was not worth the trouble. It did not come. Your father is Sergei Volkov, he said when I had finished. Yes, I know of him. We've had interactions, territorial disputes. His jaw tightened. He's a monster. Yes. And Carlo has been feeding him information, using my organization to locate you. It seems so. Marchetti stood. He walked to my window, looked out at the city below, and was silent for a long moment. Carlo will be dealt with, he said finally. He won't bother you again. And your father, he turned to face me. Your father will receive a message, a clear one. If he sends anyone else after you, if he makes any move against you at all, I will dismantle his operation piece by piece until there is nothing left. You would do that, for me. I would do more than that. He crossed the room, stopped in front of me, close, closer than he had ever stood before. You are under my protection, Elena. That means something. It means that anyone who threatens you threatens me. It means that your enemies are my enemies. It means... He paused. Something shifted in his expression. It means I will burn down everything your father has built if that's what it takes to keep you safe. I looked up at him. This man who had been a stranger a month ago. This man who had stumbled drunk into my bar and stumbled back out under my arm. This man who had seen how I lived and refused to look away. Why? I asked. The debt is paid. You've given me more than I ever could have asked for. Why keep risking your business, your safety for someone like me? He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different. Lower. Rougher. full of something I was afraid to name. Because the debt was never about what you did for me. It was about who you are. His hand came up, slow and careful, and brushed a strand of hair from my face. You're the first person in years who has looked at me and seen something other than what I can do for them. The first person who has sat with my grief instead of trying to fix it. The first person who has made me feel. He stopped, drew a breath. I don't know what I feel. I only know I don't want to stop feeling it. I should have pulled away. I should have reminded him that this was dangerous, that feelings between people like us led nowhere good, that I had spent my whole life learning not to need anyone. But I did not pull away. I stood there, feeling the warmth of his hand against my cheek, and I let myself want something I had never believed I could have. I feel it too, I said. Something broke open in his expression, something that had been held tight for years, locked away behind walls of control and violence and grief. He looked at me like I was a miracle he did not deserve, and then he leaned forward and pressed his forehead against mine. We stood there for a long time, not kissing, not speaking, just breathing the same air, letting something build between us that neither of us had words for yet. It was the beginning. Carlo disappeared 3 days later. No one spoke of where he went or what happened. I did not ask. There were boundaries to the trust we were building, places where questions were unwelcome. I accepted that. I had grown up in a family where violence was currency. I knew how the ledgers worked. My father's response came 2 weeks after that. Not an attack. Not directly. A message, instead. A photograph slipped under my apartment door while I was at work, showing me walking to the car that picked me up each night. A reminder that he knew where I was, that his reach extended even into Marchetti's territory, that this was not over. I showed the photograph to Dante. I had started calling him Dante by then, the formality stripped away by late nights and long conversations and the slow erosion of the walls between us. He looked at it for a long time, his face perfectly still, and then he set it down on my kitchen counter. Your building has security, he said, but it's not enough. I want you to move into my estate until this is resolved. Move in with you. There's a guest wing, separate entrance. You would have your own space, your own privacy, but you would be inside my perimeter, inside my protection. People will talk. Let them. His eyes met mine. I don't care what people say, I care that you're safe. I moved in 3 days later. The estate was larger than it had seemed that first night, when I had dropped him off drunk and grieving. It sprawled across several acres, surrounded by walls and cameras and men whose job was to ensure that nothing unwanted got inside. My rooms were in the east wing, a bedroom, a sitting room, a bathroom larger than my old apartment. I had my own entrance, my own schedule, my own life. But I was inside the walls now, inside the protection, and I was close to Dante. We fell into a rhythm, dinners together when his schedule allowed, walks in the garden where he had planted roses that his daughter had chosen as a child, conversations that stretched into the early hours, covering everything from philosophy to music to the small daily absurdities that made up a life. We talked about our pasts, his rise through the ranks of his family's organization, my escape from mine. We talked about the things we had done and the things we regretted. We talked about Juliana often, and I learned to read the moments when his grief swelled up and he needed silence instead of words. I learned other things too. The way his eyes softened when he looked at me, the way his hand found mine in quiet moments, the way he stood between me and the world like a wall that would never fall. He never pushed, never presumed. He simply waited, patient and certain, for me to be ready. I was ready sooner than I expected. It was a night 3 months after I had moved into the estate. We were in the library sitting across from each other by the fire, and he was telling me about a deal that had gone wrong, a betrayal by someone he had trusted. His voice was tired, his shoulders were bowed with the weight of disappointment. I stood up, crossed the space between us, sat down beside him on the sofa. "You deserve better," I said, "than people who use you, than allies who would sell you for the right price. Most people would sell anyone for the right price. I wouldn't." He looked at me. In the firelight, his features were softer than usual, the hard edges gentled by shadow and exhaustion. "I know," he said. "That's why." I kissed him. It was not planned. It was not calculated. It was simply the next necessary thing, as inevitable as breathing. His lips were warm, and he went still against me for a moment. Surprise, I thought, or disbelief. And then his hands came up to cup my face, and he kissed me back. It was gentle, tender. Everything that he was, all that power, all that darkness, held in check by something stronger. When we pulled apart, his eyes were bright with something I had never seen there before, something that looked almost like hope. "Eleanor," he said, just my name. But the way he said it made it sound like a prayer. "I'm here," I said. "I'm not going anywhere." We did not rush. We had learned patience, both of us, the hard way. We built what we had brick by brick, layer by layer, each step a choice made deliberately. Trust, then loyalty, then the kind of intimacy that comes from being truly known. He told me everything. The full truth of his empire, the blood on his hands, the choices he had made and the prices he had paid. I told him everything too. My real name. The details of my family that I had kept hidden even from myself. The dreams that still woke me screaming in the middle of the night. We held each other's secrets like they were holy, and we did not flinch. His world tried to intrude. There were rivals who saw me as a weakness, enemies who thought they could use me to hurt him. One by one, they learned otherwise. Not because he destroyed them, though some he did, but because I was not the victim they expected. I watched. I noticed. I warned him when something felt wrong, and more than once my warnings saved lives. His. Others. I became, without quite meaning to, a part of his organization. Not as a figurehead or a trophy, but as something more valuable. A second set of eyes. A perspective he had never had before. The confrontation with my father came 8 months after that first night at the bar. I was in my rooms at the estate reading, when the alarm went off. Not the gentle chime that signalled visitors at the gate. A harsh, urgent sound that meant breach, intrusion, danger. I moved without thinking, not toward the safe room where Dante had told me to go in case of emergency, but toward the main house, toward him. I found chaos. Men running through the halls, guns drawn, shouting from somewhere outside. And there, in the centre of it all, Victor, my brother. Flanked by men I did not recognize, standing in the entrance hall like he owned it, he saw me at the same moment I saw him. "Little sister," he said, and smiled. "You've moved up in the world. How did you get in? Your boyfriend's security has holes. You just need to know where to look." He stepped toward me. His men moved with him. "Father is tired of waiting. He sent me to bring you home. I'm not going anywhere with you. You don't have a choice." Victor reached for me. I stepped back. My hand went to my waist, to the knife I had started carrying again when the threats became constant. I pulled it, held it between us, and Victor's smile widened. "Still think you can fight?" he asked. "You always were the stubborn one. And you always underestimated me." I moved, not toward him, toward the alarm panel on the wall. My free hand slammed against the panic button, the one that sent a signal directly to Dante's phone wherever he was. Victor lunged for me, but I was faster. I ducked under his arm, slashed with the knife, felt it catch on something, heard him curse, and ran. I made it 20 feet before they caught me. 2 of Victor's men tackled me from behind. I went down hard, the knife skittering away across the floor, my face pressed against the marble. Someone grabbed my arms, wrenched them behind my back. Someone else pulled me up, holding me in place. Victor approached. Blood ran down his arm from where I had cut him. His smile was gone. That, he said softly, was a mistake. He hit me. Once, twice, 3 times. I tasted blood, saw stars, but I did not cry out. I would not give him the satisfaction. Father wanted you delivered alive and unharmed, Victor said. But he didn't say anything about what happened along the way. By the time I'm done with you, you'll be begging to come home. I'll be dead first. That can be arranged. He raised his hand again. A gunshot echoed through the hall. One of the men holding me dropped. Then, another. Victor spun, reaching for his weapon, but it was too late. Dante stood at the far end of the entrance hall, flanked by his own men, a gun in his hand and something in his eyes that I had never seen before. Cold. Absolute. Merciless. "Let her go," he said. Victor's remaining men hesitated. They looked at their fallen companions, at the blood spreading across the marble, at the wall of armed men now blocking every exit. They let me go. I stumbled forward, caught myself, straightened. Dante's eyes found mine for a split second, just long enough to confirm I was alive, I was standing, I was okay. And then returned to Victor. "You broke into my home," Dante said. His voice was quiet, terrifyingly quiet. "You touched what is mine. You thought you could take her from me." "She's our blood," Victor said. His voice was steady, but I could see the fear beneath it. "She belongs to our family. She belongs to no one. She chose to leave. She chose her own life. And you?" Dante stepped closer, the gun never wavering. "You don't understand what that means. You never will." "Kill me then. My father will never stop. He'll send others. Your father will receive a message, a clear one." Dante nodded at his men. "Take him. Keep him alive. I want to send his father a reminder of what happens to people who threaten what I love." They took Victor, dragged him out struggling and cursing, while I stood in the entrance hall with blood on my face and something bright and fierce burning in my chest. What I love. Dante crossed to me. His gun disappeared somewhere, and then his hands were on my face, gentle as always, tilting my head to examine the damage. "Are you hurt?" "Nothing serious. You're bleeding." "I've bled before." His jaw tightened. I saw the fury there, the barely contained violence, the desperate need to destroy everything that had ever hurt me. But his touch remained gentle. Always gentle. "I should have been here," he said. "I should have—" "You came." I put my hands over his, held them against my face. "You came. That's all that matters." He pulled me into his arms, held me like I was the most precious thing in the world, like losing me would destroy him. I let myself be held. I let myself feel safe, truly safe for the first time since Victor had appeared in the hall. "I love you," Dante said. The words were muffled against my hair, but I heard them clearly. I should have said it before. I should have said it 1,000 times, but I'm saying it now. I love you, Elena, and I will spend the rest of my life keeping you safe. I pulled back to look at him. This man. This dangerous, powerful, broken man who had walked into my bar 8 months ago and changed everything. "I love you too," I said. He kissed me. Deep and desperate, full of relief and promise, and the kind of love that survives violence and grief, and the darkness that lives in both of us. When we finally pulled apart, I was smiling, and he was looking at me, like I was a miracle he would spend his whole life learning to deserve. My father never sent anyone else. Whatever message Dante delivered through Victor was enough. 6 months later, I learned that Sergei Volkov had died. Complications from a surgery, the official report said, though I suspected the complications had names and worked for my Dante. I did not ask for confirmation. Some things were better left unknown. We married a year after that night in the entrance hall. A small ceremony in his garden, surrounded by roses that his daughter had planted, speaking vows we had written ourselves. He slid a ring onto my finger, simple, elegant, nothing ostentatious. and promised to protect me until his last breath. "I will see you," I said in return, "all of you, the light and the dark. I will not flinch. I will not run. I will love you without conditions or limits for as long as I live." He kissed me, and somewhere above us I liked to think his daughter was watching. Approving. At peace. We built a life in that estate. I continued helping women who had been where I had been. Dante funded shelters, safe houses, programs that gave people the resources to escape. His empire continued, changed slightly by my influence, oriented toward protections I insisted upon. I did not try to make him good. He was what he was, forged by violence and necessity. But I helped him be better, and he helped me be brave, and together we became something neither of us could have been alone. I think about that first night sometimes, the drunk man at my bar drowning in grief, the choice I made to help him, the moment in the car when I noticed the tail and turned left instead of right and changed both our lives forever. I did not know then what that choice would lead to. I did not know that a single act of kindness would unravel into love, into safety, into a life I never dared to imagine. But that is how it works, I think. The moments that matter most are the ones we do not recognize until later. The choices that shape us are the small ones, the quiet ones, the ones we make without thinking. I chose to help a stranger. He chose to see me. And from those two choices, we built something that will last longer than either of us. Outside my window, the sun is setting over Dante's garden. The roses are blooming, red and white, the colours Juliana chose. In the house behind me, I can hear him on the phone, his voice low and calm, handling some crisis that will never touch me. Soon he will hang up and come find me, and we will sit together in the fading light and talk about nothing and everything, and I will feel what I have felt every day since that first night at the bar. Safe, loved, seen. It is more than I ever dreamed of, more than I ever believed I could have. It is enough. It is everything.